What's up, everyone? I'm Jaren, and today we are talking about the long-awaited 2022 reboot of The Batman. This movie is co-written and directed by Matt Reeves, who's responsible for Cloverfield, the 2010 American remake of Let Me In, as well as the last two Planet of the Apes movies. Also written by Peter Craig, who is responsible for the screenplay of Bad Boys for Life, Bloodfather, and The Town. This time around, the story centers around a sadistic psychopath who calls himself the Riddler, and he begins murdering political figures in Gotham, which forces Batman to investigate the city's hidden corruption and question his family's involvement. Now, when I first heard the news that they were doing a new Batman movie without Ben Affleck, without any connective tissue to the DCEU canon, I was pretty upset. We were getting over the fact that Christian Bale was done as the role for Batman, so they got Ben Affleck to come in for the 2015 Batman vs. Superman. And not many fans were pleased, but it impressed a lot of moviegoers. And you know what? 2017 Justice League was pretty much garbage, but we were really just hoping to see Zack Snyder's Justice League, and we got him. We wanted to see more of older, more dark and brooding Ben Affleck Batman, and to just completely toss him aside, to completely throw away his script, take him out of the directing, producing, and acting chair, we just felt like we were built up all this time for nothing. Warner Brothers was back on their high horse. They hired Matt Reeves as the new director, and they brought him in. He didn't want to work with Ben Affleck, so they fired him, and they decided to go with a different script other than following the Justice League story. And then we got news that Robert Pattinson was joining the cast as the role of Batman/Bruce Wayne. And just like the rest of the internet, I was not optimistic about it at all. I didn't think he had it in him. The first Comic-Con trailer came out. I was not convinced. I wasn't happy with how just very down-to-earth and just kind of very wonky a lot of the costumes were, that were somewhere between Batman, Catwoman, and even the Riddler. I was like, what is this? This is nothing like the comics at all. After a lot of delays, after a lot of hardship that the cast and crew had to endure during the pandemic with this production, seeing this now, I have been proven wrong. And this movie was fucking phenomenal. First, there was Todd Phillips, who did the Solo Joker adaptation, which almost seemed like a Scorsese film, kind of a throwback to Taxi Driver with Joaquin Phoenix. And now we have Matt Reeves, who's trying to make his film look more like a David Fincher thriller like Seven, with Batman characters in it. This is not your typical superhero action-packed blockbuster. And if that's what you came here for, this might not be your movie, because this is more of a murder mystery type thriller with these DC characters. With that being said, this film is grim, gritty, and gripping from start to finish. This is probably the darkest Batman movie to date. Now, don't get me wrong, there is action in this movie, but probably not as much in compared to the Dark Knight trilogy, because Christopher Nolan's version has really perceived him more of a ninja. Now, if you're more familiar with the older films or the animated series, you can see that they actually brought Batman down to his roots. I mean, he still fights bad guys, but he does a lot of detective work too. And it's also how he goes about doing his investigations and some of the technology he uses, which I'm not going to spoil for this one, but I always love when they somehow bring in something new, something like with gadgets or tools that we probably may have seen him use before, but also kind of nice to see a little bit more of an upgrade on. The production design was brilliant. I love a lot of the tinier details, especially with how they play with a lot of the darkness and the shadows, and just how a lot of the criminals just kind of lurk around the city. But Gotham was just a lot more scarier this time around. Now let's talk about the cast, because this movie was led by powerhouse performances. I cannot stress that these guys deserve to go to the Oscars next year. First up is Zoe Kravitz, who plays Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman. Now, she is just dripping with sex appeal and power in this movie, and she had some really big shoes to fill, because Michelle Pfeiffer, back in the old Batman Returns as Catwoman, she held the bar really high. And let's not talk about Halle Berry in that Catwoman solo movie, but she definitely did a lot better job than Anne Hathaway for sure. I love her performance. I love her characterization and just how she holds herself on screen. I didn't mind her mask slash costume after viewing the movie. At first, I was like, man, this is really half assed for the character, but it only really makes sense when you're dealing with someone who doesn't have a lot of money, who's gonna go as a burglar in a way and not literally labelize themselves as Catwoman just yet. Number two, we got Andy Serkis as Alfred Pennyworth. I actually wanted more of him on screen because he just does a really great job as the Alfred character, and especially when he's trying to be like more than just a butler, more than just a partner in the scheme of doing Batman things. He really does share some kind of compassion on the screen that I've never really seen before in other films. Number three, Colin Farrell playing Oz Cobblepot, aka the Penguin. And I gotta say, if you did not tell me that Colin Farrell was in this movie, I wouldn't have recognized him a bit. He just disappears into the role as the Penguin, and you know, he does what the Penguin does. He doesn't necessarily look like a literal penguin, but he does have the scars. He looks like that mob boss, that person you want to hate, but at the same time really enjoy the company of his wit and humor he just has against Batman. When Farrell gets chosen as a villain in a movie, he goes completely all out, just like his character Bullseye in the Daredevil movie, and right here as Cobblepot, as the Penguin, he definitely delivers. I'm just wondering if it's actually a good idea to really give him his own TV show on HBO Max after this, because he was here in a good amount. I just can't see a movie or a show where he's completely the main focus. Number four, Paul Dano as the Riddler, and my god, he was just very impressive, unpredictably scary. Like, they made him practically the Zodiac Killer. To model his influence, to manner his, like, just sadisticness, it was scary. Even in the opening sequence where he's just standing there in the dark, I was just glued to my seat like, holy shit, what is he gonna do? This movie could have been rated R, especially the way he kills people, but the movie does a really good job in showing you just enough, but the implication is just very disturbing. Now, growing up with Jim Carrey as a Riddler, that's my childhood. That's what I know the Riddler character to be, but Paul Dano did a really great job just bringing this psychopath to life. Like, he really delivers a new type of rendition of the Riddler that I've never seen before, and what I'm not used to, but as a horror fan, I definitely dig it. Number five, the big elephant in the room, Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne, aka the Batman. Now, a lot of people on the internet and a lot of naysayers out there were really just hating, just hoping that this movie would fail because of Robert Pattinson and how this sparkly vampire was going to become the new Batman. But now, it's time to move on. I don't want to hear shit about his fucking Twilight career. Robert Pattinson is the Batman. He's Bruce Wayne. He did an incredible, phenomenal job. What I love about Pattinson's performance is that he's not just a character who's trying so hard to be our hero. He's a man with little words because he is just broken inside. He is at a loss. He is figuring himself out of the hero he's trying to be, of what he is worth, because he doesn't say too much. He literally walks around a lot, whether he's Bruce Wayne or Batman. He just goes around just staring at people. And a lot of his best acting is really showing you how well reserved he is until he completely blows up physically. And I love that. I love that we're seeing a different kind of rendition of the Batman and Bruce Wayne, and especially when we're watching the opening sequence of when he's introduced. You know, you're just seeing all these villains like scurry around and they stare out into the darkness, and you don't see the Batman at first, but you hear the footsteps and the way he emerges from the darkness and just holds himself up on the screen. I was just getting goosebumps. There's even a scene where he's looking at this kid who lost a loved one, and how he's just burdening him with the pain that kid is probably feeling. A lot of fans, a lot of audience members won't be completely welcoming to this brooding / bleak vibe that you're going to get from our main character, but I think it's a much more fresh approach that Pattinson and Reeves decided to go with. Now, the movie is 3 hours long, which honestly felt like two because I did not for once check my watch during this entire movie because I was really well invested in the story. And that's what I liked about this story was that they really did a good job in integrating more of a mystery and actually utilizing a lot of the characters that they were using, including the characters of Catwoman, Penguin, and the Riddler, all in one go. It wasn't like the Christian Bale trilogy where they would just have one center focus villain and then have a bunch of the other guys just scattered around for cameos. Now, there is a hint of a character who is familiar in the Batman universe, and if I'm going to be 100% honest, without spoiling or giving away who it is, I don't want them to bring this character in the next movie because we've seen many versions of this character, and as much as I love this particular character, I think this story, this new movie, this new universe of Robert Pattinson's Batman is just not ready for it yet. I honestly want them to do a story on the Court of Owls because they have not seen a live action rendition, as well as maybe bringing out the doll maker, or is it the toy maker? I'm kind of confused, but I have seen that one particular villain in the animated series or the animated movies, like they're going for a much darker theme. I would love to see a much darker rendition of various Batman villains that we've never really seen before. And by the end of this movie, once he goes through all these hardships, it really shapes of what this character is going to go through down the road and what kind of hero he needs to be for Gotham. And I think that's going to be very interesting. I would love to see where Pattinson and Reeves takes the Batman character / Bruce Wayne to like the next level. Now, if I'm going to be honest, I think I love this movie just as much as I do The Dark Knight. Nothing better, nothing less. I feel like they are two completely different movies that offer something that bleeds across the spectrum of greatness, which is of the same source material. And I think they have both something wonderful to offer. And I feel like that's what makes this DC universe so great. It's kind of like if you were to ask me who's my favorite Joker. Is it Jack Nicholson? Is it Heath Ledger? Is it Joaquin Phoenix? Well, you know what? I'm going to say all three because I love the fact that I live in a world where I can experience all of them on 3 different screens in 3 different themes. The Batman is a film noir thriller that bleeds both art house and entertainment value all in one swoop, which makes this one of the best movie-going experiences of 2022. Alright guys, that's all I got to say about that movie. Look forward to more reviews and thank you so much for watching. I'm Jaren and I will see you guys at the movies. Take care.